You've felt it, right? That moment of panic when your favorite app just dies, a website won't load, or an entire company's services just blink out of existence. Well, these aren't just little glitches anymore. We're seeing massive, system-wide failures. So today we're going to dive deep into the world of digital black swans, these wild, unpredictable events that can bring our entire digital world to its knees.
And to really get our heads around the scale of this problem, we don't even have to look that far back. Let's rewind to one single chaotic day in the summer of 2024. A day when, for millions of people, the internet just kind of vanished.
Remember this date, because on this day, millions of us got a truly terrifying glimpse of what happens when one critical piece of our shared digital world just breaks.
At first, it just looked like computers were crashing. But the real-world domino effect was immediate and catastrophic. We're talking grounded airlines, hospitals thrown into chaos, banking systems totally frozen. And the cause? Get this. It wasn't some massive hack. It was a single, faulty software update from a cybersecurity firm called CrowdStrike.
The sheer scale of this thing is just mind-boggling. Microsoft figured that about 8.5 million Windows devices across the globe were hit by this bug. They all crashed in that infamous blue screen of death. Think about that. One tiny error from one company triggered a global IT meltdown.
So, this begs a really important question. The internet was originally designed to survive a nuclear war. How on earth did it become this fragile house of cards, ready to topple at any moment? To figure that out, we need a totally new way of thinking about risk.
And this is where the work of the author and risk analyst Nassim Nicholas Taleb is absolutely essential. He basically gives us the mental toolkit we need to understand why all our old ways of predicting the future are completely, totally broken.
Okay, so Taleb says we live in two different worlds. First, there's mediocre Stan. This is the world of the predictable, the average. Think about something like human height. You're never going to meet someone who is 1,000 feet tall and completely skews the average. But then, there's Extremist Stan. This is the world of wild extremes, where one single event can change everything. A viral video, a stock market crash, or a massive internet outage. And the internet? Oh yeah, it lives deep in Extremistan.
And Extremistan is where black swan events are born. These are those completely unpredictable, super high-impact events that, after they happen, everyone says, oh, of course, that was obvious. That CrowdStrike outage? A perfect, textbook digital black swan.
All right, so now that we have this black swan lens, let's use it to look at the internet itself. And what you'll find is that this fragility isn't some bug, it's a feature. It's been designed right into the system's architecture.
You can think of the internet's fragility as being built on three really shaky pillars. First, its core protocols, the very foundation, are based on an old, outdated model of trust that just doesn't work anymore. Second, a massive chunk of the internet is now controlled by just 3 companies. And third, modern software is like a giant, complex Jenga tower of code from other people. You pull out one wrong block and the whole thing comes crashing down.
Now this chart tells a really scary story. Look at the trend here. The percentage of major internet outages caused by just a few big cloud providers has more than doubled in only 2 years. We've traded the internet's original decentralized strength for what we thought was efficiency, and in the process we've created a massive systemic risk.
Let's connect the dots here. That huge Facebook outage in 2021, that was a classic case of a system becoming fragile because it was too optimized. The CrowdStrike disaster in 2024, a black swan that flew out of that messy software supply chain. And all those recurring AWS outages, they scream about the dangers of concentration. You see, these aren't random accidents, they're symptoms of a deeply flawed design.
So if our digital world is fragile, what's the opposite? You might think it's being robust or resilient, right? Well, Taleb gives us a much more powerful idea to work with.
And that idea is anti-fragility. It's a game changer. Think of it this way. A fragile teacup shatters when you drop it. A robust steel ball is just fine, unchanged. But an anti-fragile system, it doesn't just survive shocks and failures, it actually learns from them. It gets stronger. It evolves through chaos.
The perfect metaphor for this is the mythological Hydra. You cut off one head and 2 grow back in its place. See, anti-fragility isn't about trying to prevent every single failure. It's about building a system that heals back stronger than it was before. Every failure becomes a lesson that makes the whole system tougher. Okay, so that's the big idea. But how do we actually manage things in this complex, unpredictable world?
Well, the economist Sanjeev Sanyal has this brilliant, super practical analogy.
Think about how a dog catches a frisbee. The dog isn't doing complex physics calculations in its head, right? Of course not. It just keeps its eye on the frisbee and is constantly, continuously adjusting its speed and position. It's running on a super tight feedback loop. And that is how we need to manage these complex systems. Not with rigid 5-year plans, but with constant observation and rapid adaptation.
So let's put all this theory into practice. When you combine these ideas, black swans, anti-fragility, and that frisbee-catching dog, you can actually start to build a blueprint for a more resilient and ultimately an anti-fragile digital world.
If you're one of the people actually building these systems, the message is crystal clear. Stop chasing this impossible dream of perfect optimization. Instead, embrace redundancy and decentralization. And here's the big one. Design your systems assuming they will fail. Build them so they can degrade gracefully instead of just collapsing into a heap.
And for the regulators, the approach needs to be way more like Sanyal's frisbee-catching dog. Stop trying to write 1,000-page rulebooks that are already obsolete the day they're printed. Instead, set broad guardrails. Enforce real accountability, what Taleb calls having skin in the game, and actively, aggressively promote a diverse tech ecosystem, not a fragile monoculture where one failure takes down everyone.
And finally, for any organization that relies on this stuff, which, let's be honest, is all of us, the takeaways are super direct. Number 1, assume your primary systems will fail and have a plan for when they do. Number 2, vet your entire digital supply chain because you do not want to be the next CrowdStrike story. And number 3, run your operations on that tight, frisbee-catching feedback loop, always ready to adapt. Which leaves us with one last really crucial question to think about. This whole quest to build a perfect, unbreakable internet has, ironically, made it more fragile than ever. So maybe the real goal shouldn't be to prevent every single failure. Maybe the goal should be to build a system that learns from failure. A system that, just like the Hydra, actually gets stronger with every single challenge it faces.